Is the Pentagon haunted? Are there really aliens out there that the government is keeping secret from us? How did a gaming Discord server called Thug Shaker Central undermine national security? Wrap a tinfoil hat on tight as we delve into 50 of the most insane declassified secrets that the public was never meant to learn. Number 50. The Pentagon does indeed have its very own UFO monitoring program. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program has long been a closely guarded secret and never once formally acknowledged by the Department of Defense. Many have still long suspected that the agency must have some form of dedicated special division that investigates reports of unidentified flying objects. But the Pentagon even went as far as to claim back in 2012 that such a program, if it even existed, hadn't been receiving any funding. That is, until July 15, 2022, when the existence of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office was announced to the public. The official function of this office was to collect and analyze reports of what the Department of Defense referred to as unidentified aerial phenomena or unidentified anomalous phenomena, better known as UAP. It's possible that this acronym was established to distance from the previously popular term UFOs, given that it had been long synonymous with aliens or alien technology. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office reports that they have found no evidence of either, but they have openly admitted that there are some incidents they've looked into that they still can't quite explain. Number 49. Sticking with UFOs, back in November of 2004, David Fravor, commander aboard the aircraft carrier the USS Nimitz, had his crew investigate a possible target that had appeared on the ship's radar. What he and his men witnessed was an unusual aircraft that looked like a large white oval. Fighter jets were sent up to investigate and even captured video of the object on their infrared cameras. There were even similar incidents that took place during 2014 and 2015, where pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt carrier encountered and were able to record objects that they couldn't identify. These videos of what have since been referred to as the Nimitz UFO encounters are astonishing to those who believe in the existence of aliens. However, many have speculated that there could be much more to those incidents. Adding fuel to the fire, direct witnesses have claimed that there is a longer video that still has not been released by the Navy that apparently depicts the unidentified white object performing a number of aerial maneuvers thought to be physically impossible. Give us the aliens, Pentagon! I recently noticed that I was getting a ton of unwanted spam calls. After a simple search of my phone number online, turns out that it was posted everywhere. No wonder this had turned into such a nightmare. I'm sure many of you have had the exact same experience. The internet is a vast place, and it's staggering how much of our personal information like phone numbers and email addresses is out there without our knowledge. This is where Aura, the sponsor of today's video, comes into play. Aura is all about protecting your personal data online. Data brokers are these companies that collect and sell our personal information, feeding into those endless spam calls and emails. Aura specializes in identifying these data brokers and getting your information off their lists. They work tirelessly to opt you out from these brokers, significantly cutting down those annoying calls. What I love about Aura is that it's not just about managing spam calls. They offer a wide range of features, including monitoring for data breaches on the dark web and even recommendations on how to respond if your data is compromised. Just the other day, Aura alerted me that my email was part of a data breach, and I could quickly take action to protect myself. Aura is like having a personal security team on your phone and computer. It includes a VPN, a password manager, credit and identity theft monitoring, and even protection against malware. It's all these essential internet safety tools in one convenient package. I encourage you to try Aura. They're offering a 2-week free trial, and I think you'll be amazed at the difference it makes. Just go to aura.com/infographics or click the link in the description to start your trial. Protecting your privacy is more important than ever, and Aura is here to help. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video. And now, back to the video. Number 48. As if the existence of these Navy UFO videos weren't enough of a shocking secret that the Pentagon kept under wraps, it also has been revealed that these clips were never supposed to be released to the public in the first place. The clips documenting supposed UFO activity were leaked, along with the context that they had been captured by U.S. Navy fighter pilots. The Department of Defense was forced to admit that they had never intended the public to see the footage. Number 47. But forget about aliens, sometimes domestic terrorists are the biggest threat to the Pentagon. In 1972, a far-left Marxist group called Weather Underground conducted a bombing campaign across the United States. specifically targeting government buildings. They placed a bomb in a woman's bathroom in the Pentagon, which caused some structural damage but thankfully didn't result in any casualties. Number 46. The Pentagon has some pretty insane inventions, including military chewing gum. The so-called combat gum is being developed to help meet the dental needs of soldiers early and potentially save the Army $100 million a year on addressing dental issues for service members. The gum contains a secret synthetic sequence of antimicrobial peptides that'll break down the plaque that causes tooth decay in the mouths of soldiers. And if it goes well, we might find this handy dental gum hitting the shelves for general consumers someday in the future, as is often the case with military tech. Number 45. Did you know that protesters tried to magically levitate the Pentagon? The disastrous Vietnam War did not succeed in making the US government particularly popular, domestically or on the international stage. One group of protesters marched on the Pentagon with a plan to levitate it through the power of chance and exorcise it of its evil, thus ending the Vietnam War. This didn't actually work, of course, but it succeeded in getting a lot of attention to the issue, which is a victory in itself. Number 44. The Pentagon helps movies that paint the military in a positive light. Movies like The Sum of All Fears, Battleship, the Top Gun movies, and many of the films from the Marvel Cinematic Universe were given both financial assistance and access to resources and technology from the US military. Some movies that paint the armed forces in a more critical light are likely to be denied assistance from the Pentagon, including anti-war movies like The Deer Hunter and Platoon. Number 43. In the early 1990s, the Pentagon had a pretty horrific pest problem. In an act of infiltration that enemy spies wish they could pull off, during the Gulf War, the Pentagon became a haven for rats and cockroaches. For workers in the basement, there were so many roaches they'd occasionally fall from the ceiling onto the employee desks. 1991 saw hundreds of reports of rats running through the halls, getting to a point where they were seeing as many as 5 rat incidents a week in food service areas. John Rebstock, the general manager of the company that provided food services for the Pentagon, once sent out a memo saying, "My message is simple. Help is needed and requested. The level of infestation has become unacceptable. Gross." Number 42. The Pentagon might have alien vehicles. One astrophysicist named Eric Davis was consulted for the Pentagon's UFO program and claims to have personally examined numerous examples of what he believed to be off-world vehicles. Number 41. Speaking of secretive vehicles, it turns out the US Air Force built a fighter jet that nobody knew about. In 2020, an official surprise announcement was made to the public regarding a jet that had been designed, built, and tested all in secret by the Next Generation Air Dominance program. No other information about the fighter jet has been released and likely won't be until this secret project begins deployment. Number 40. The US military once funded their very own flying saucer program. Starting back in the 50s, the program was titled Project 1794, tasked with designing the US military's very own flying saucers. In other words, a supersonic aircraft to combat Soviet bombers. Number 39. The military has attempted to harness the power of Zeus himself and turn lightning into a weapon. Declassified documents from 1967 indicate that a functional weapon was indeed created for this purpose that couldn't be traced back to the wielder. However, the CIA supposedly never fulfilled the program. But never give up on your dreams, because the US Army has since been working on the much more successful 50 billion watt laser-induced plasma channel, which zaps conductive targets with awesome accuracy. Number 38. The Air Force is keeping a secret Russian anti-aircraft missile off the books. In June 2020, the intelligence community acquired a Pantsir S-1 from Libyan forces. This is Russia's most advanced anti-aircraft missile, designed for low-altitude air defense, most recently deployed in war zones both in Syria and Libya. At present, there's no official word on where this missile is. Number 37. One of the Pentagon's most dangerous locations may have been a hot dog stand. According to the Department of Defense Communications Officer Brent Eaton, there were rumors that during the Cold War, the Soviets had 2 nuclear missiles aimed at the hot dog stand in the case of an all-out war. Why? Well, according to Eaton, they thought this was the Pentagon's most top-secret meeting room, and the entire Pentagon was a large fortress built around this hot dog stand. They thought the officers were going to get their top-secret briefings in a protected area, but really they were just going to get lunch. Number 36. In the 90s, a pair of naval officers discovered an inexplicable dark mass beneath the surface of the ocean, and it wasn't a submarine. Assigned to retrieve BQM aerial target drones and submarine torpedoes from the ocean, A commander and helicopter pilot recalled seeing a large, shadowy, circular object try to swallow a torpedo that they were attempting to recover. There were 2 different alleged sightings of the bizarre black mass, and there is still no definitive explanation. Number 35. During the Cold War, the government ran a now declassified training program known as the Constant Peg program. This trained U.S. pilots to fly MiGs, fighter jets that had formerly belonged to the Soviet Union. The government secretly procured these aircraft so that the best pilots in the Air Force could become better familiarized with the enemy technology and how to fight against the MiGs if World War III broke out. Number 34. In World War II, the Army smuggled secret escape plans in an unlikely place. Allied forces troops being detained as prisoners of war were snuck out of POW camps thanks to detailed escape routes that were hidden within decks of cards. Thanks to the Geneva Convention, stating that prisoners of war could receive care packages at Christmas, these decks of cards were smuggled undetected into camps and allowed the captive Allied soldiers to escape. Number 33. A Pentagon renovation project saved hundreds of lives on 9/11. As part of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, killing 189 people. However, the Pentagon was undergoing major renovations at the time, meaning that fewer employees than usual were on site. The plane also hit Wedge 3 of the Pentagon, which had been freshly renovated and was fitted with a new sprinkler system and blast-resistant windows, in addition to extra structural support. Had the attack happened even a year earlier, the casualties likely would have been far more severe. Number 32. The Air Force has been launching unmanned space planes into orbit since 2010. Designated the X-37B Orbital Test Vehicle 5, these have been deployed on 5 missions to run classified tests. The last of these saw the craft spend a record-breaking 780 days in orbit. Number 31. The Pentagon building has a pretty amazing food court. You probably don't associate the serious work of the Department of Defense with junk food binges, and yet the building has a Baskin-Robbins, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Taco Bell, a Burger King, a Popeyes, a KFC, a Subway, a Panda Express, and a Starbucks. So we know the DoD workers won't get hungry. But if you're worried about them getting heart attacks from that diet plus all the stress of protecting America's national security, don't worry, the place also has a pretty amazing gym. Not to mention an optometrist, a CVS, a clothes store, and a jewelry store, as well as a florist. Number 30. Area 51 gave us one of the best recon planes of the 20th century. In 1963, the A-12 Oxcart was developed for reconnaissance missions at high altitudes and any that required evasive maneuvers. Throughout the design, construction, and testing phases of the A-12 project, the aircraft was located at none other than the infamous Area 51 Air Force Base in Nevada, meaning the A-12 likely would have been tested there too. It was considered the best reconnaissance aircraft at the U.S.'s disposal until the SR-71 took its place in 1968. Number 29. The Air Force hasn't just conducted secret projects on Earth. While NASA was receiving a lot of news coverage in the 60s, thanks to the space race, the Air Force was conducting their own secret space program. The Manned Orbiting Laboratory was a top-secret satellite that was intended to spy on the Soviet Union. Officially, there was never a launch associated with the project, and it was supposedly shut down in 1969. However, thanks to declassified documents, we now know the government planned to keep an orbital eye in the sky trained on the Soviet Union. Number 28. The Pentagon was actually the first integrated building in Virginia. Due to the laws of segregation, when the Pentagon was first built, there were separate facilities for the black and white government employees on site. However, after a violent confrontation where a white employee struck a black employee on the head for trying to enter a whites-only cafeteria, President Roosevelt decided something needed to change. He made an executive order forbidding racial segregation and discrimination in federal facilities, making the Pentagon the only building in Virginia that was desegregated. To this day, because of the Pentagon's segregationist past, it has twice as many bathrooms as it needs. Number 27. Donald Trump accidentally tweeted Pentagon secrets. Of the several thousand satellites orbiting around Earth, hundreds of them are owned and operated by the United States military. This might not be a secret since the public has been aware of the presence of these satellites for years. However, their actual capabilities have remained unknown. That is, until former President Donald Trump released a classified image on his Twitter of all places. In September of 2019, an image of one of the United States' KH-11 reconnaissance satellites appeared online. For obvious reasons, there is not a lot of known information about these satellites. Number 26. Project Blue Book was the third of the U.S. Air Force's UFO programs. By 1952, the previous program had deemed that 23% of all UFO cases were inexplicable, so Project Blue Book was initiated in order to debunk these earlier inquiries. The Air Force might have discontinued the program in 1969, but the government has since continued to record supposed UFO encounters. Number 25. The Pentagon is much bigger than you think. While the building is surprisingly short for its massive importance to the U.S. government, its design documents dictated that it be no taller than 5 stories, with 2 stories below ground. It covers 6.5 million square feet of office space, which is 3 times the floor space of the Empire State Building. There are almost 18 miles of corridors, but because of its unique design, it only takes 7 minutes to walk between the building's 2 furthest points. Number 24. Ever wondered why the Pentagon is, well, a pentagon? The initial place where the Pentagon was going to be built was a plot of land just east of Arlington Cemetery in Virginia, which had once been owned by Robert E. Lee. The area now belonged to the Department of Agriculture, which was running Arlington farms. This created an issue for the Department of Defense, as access roads to the farms ran over the land where the Pentagon was going to be built. To accommodate the access roads, the building had to be designed in a strange, irregular, pentagonal shape. When the building site was moved, it was too late to alter the plans, so the edges were made regular and the Pentagon we know today was constructed. Number 23. Did you know that during the Manhattan Project to develop nuclear weapons, Russian spies were able to leak information about the atomic bomb back to the Soviet Union? According to declassified documents, a man named Oscar Sieberer, who was working at the Los Alamos National Laboratory during the 1940s, was leaking information to the Soviets about the United States' development of nuclear bombs. Although Sieberer was most likely first identified in 1956, his identity wasn't made public until much later. Number 22. Are there actually aliens in Area 51? Contrary to popular belief and in a reveal that is likely to break the hearts of extraterrestrial-obsessed stargazers everywhere, there really aren't any aliens at Area 51. The infamous heavily guarded base serves as a test site for classified aircraft, communications devices, and weaponry, and doesn't actually house any alien bodies that we know of. Never stop dreaming, X-Files fans. Number 21. Did you know the Department of Defense is looking into ways to control people's sleep? A research project is currently investigating ways to control rapid eye movement or REM sleep, reportedly with the goal of easing stress and helping subjects deal with traumatic memories. Number 20. A Discord group called Thug Shaker Central leaked state secrets from the Pentagon. A 21-year-old member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard named Jack Tesaria was arrested by the FBI in April 2023 for stealing and releasing extremely sensitive military documents to the largely underaged members of his gaming Discord server, causing them to be leaked to 4chan. These next few facts will be Pentagon secrets we found from those leaked documents concerning the war in Ukraine. Number 19. The head of the Wagner Group, a Russian state-funded private military company, offered to reveal Russian troop locations to Ukrainian forces. Prior to his death in August 2023, Yevgeny Prigozhin had offered to hand over Russian intel regarding the positions of their soldiers' locations to Ukraine. This was under the provision that they withdrew their forces from Bakhmut, where the Wagner Group had been taking heavy losses. According to intelligence documents that were leaked, Prigozhin, who had long been an ally of Vladimir Putin and even publicly attempted to have the Wagner Group halt Russia's invasion, maintained a secret relationship with Ukrainian intelligence through various phone calls and in-person meetings. Number 18. More Pentagon documents indicated that Ukraine had planned a series of secret attacks against Russian forces in Syria. Although their plans were later abandoned, Ukraine had intended to conduct strikes against Russian troops inside Syria that they could later deny any involvement in. The plan initially included providing arms and training to Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces, then having them launch drone strikes to target Wagner Group mercenaries backed by Russia. President Zelensky ultimately put a stop to these plans in December 2023, but the Pentagon's leaked documents suggest that this strategy could still be revived. Number 17. According to another of the leaked documents, the U.S. attempted to dissuade Ukraine from defending the city of Bakhmut against the Russian advance. However, Ukraine disregarded this and protected Bakhmut anyway. Number 16. When several Chinese spy balloons flew across the U.S. before being shot down, it turned out that the Pentagon was well aware of the capabilities of these devices. Among the recently leaked documents were annotated images taken by a spy plane describing what these balloons were equipped with. Called a Killeen-23 by intelligence agencies, these balloons apparently included sensors and antennas that the US government couldn't identify even a week after they'd had the balloons shot down. Number 15. The Pentagon's documents also indicate that the US has intelligence operatives deep within most of Russia's security services, intelligence agencies, and the higher levels of the military command. Through this, they've granted the US an insight into the internal plans of Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU, and obtained intelligence relating to their military capabilities and plans for the war in Ukraine. It's likely that the US has passed a lot of this information to Kyiv in order to support Ukraine against the invasion. Number 14. One such piece of intelligence the Pentagon has acquired was that the Spetsnaz, Russia's elite special forces, have suffered such heavy losses in Ukraine that it may take a decade to build their numbers back up again. Typically, the highly trained Spetsnaz operatives are sent on riskier missions, but senior commanders in the Russian military seem to have been too eager to deploy their elite forces and have misused them in the invasion. According to the Pentagon's intelligence, the high number of Spetsnaz casualties could make Russia's special forces less effective, not just in Ukraine but across the world. Number 13. It's not just Russia that the US has been spying on either. The Pentagon has been gathering intelligence on their allies. This includes monitoring the communications of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This is apparently how they've learned a lot about Ukraine's attempts to repel the Russian invasion. And when this information leaked, Ukrainian officials were outraged as it forced them to make changes to their plans. Number 12. The Pentagon's intelligence also expressed doubt that Ukraine can retake the territory that is now occupied by Russian forces, owing to a lack of equipment, ammunition, and troops. Their leaked documents also suggested that a difference in levels of training between the two armies could result in heavy human casualties. Number 11. One of the reports leaked from the Pentagon indicated that the Wagner Group attempted to secure weapons from Turkey through Mali. They uncovered that Mali's interim president had confirmed that they would purchase arms from Turkey on behalf of the mercenary group. Turkey declined to comment on the allegation, but it could mean that this NATO country was covertly supplying weapons to both sides involved in the conflict in Ukraine. Number 10. Another similar secret about arms being sent between countries came up in plans from Egypt's president to deliver rockets to Russia. A Pentagon report suggested that Abdel Fattah el-Sisi had ordered a shipment of 40,000 rockets to be sent to Russia. Egypt has long been an ally of the US and publicly maintained a policy of non-involvement in the war in Ukraine. Assuming the intelligence was accurate, Egypt has reaffirmed its non-involvement, and there's no evidence that the plan had been carried out. Number 9. In a move that could have added to the tension caused by their invasion, Russian forces almost shot down a UK surveillance plane near Ukraine. The leaked Pentagon documents reported that a pair of Russian Su-27 fighter jets intercepted a British RC-135 reconnaissance plane flying in international airspace over the Black Sea. One fired a missile from a distance, but a Russian defense official claimed that this was owing to a technical malfunction. Number 8. One of the leaked documents also contained a worrying claim from Russian intelligence officers that the United Arab Emirates had agreed to work together with Russia against the US and the UK. There wasn't any clear record of such an agreement, and these claims could have been intentionally or unintentionally misleading, if not outright false. Number 7. The Pentagon is also aware that Russian hackers may have gained access to the natural gas infrastructure of Canada. U.S. intelligence agencies have intercepted communications between a pro-Russian hacking group, Zarya, and officers with Russia's FSB security service. The hackers claim to have breached a Canadian gas facility and gained access to its control systems that would give them the ability to increase valve pressure, disable alarms, and initiate an emergency shutdown. The Pentagon's reporting stated that FSB officers had instructed the hacker group to maintain access and await further instructions, but there was no evidence that any natural gas pipeline company in Canada has suffered from a cyber attack. Number 6. It turns out that even one of Russia's allies, Serbia, has disapproved of the invasion and even agreed to send arms to Ukraine as a result. Despite refusing to levy any sanctions against Russia, Serbia may have sent weapons to Kyiv. The country's defense minister outright denied that the Serbian government has been responsible for supplying lethal aid to Ukraine. However, a classified Pentagon document that was leaked seemed to suggest otherwise. Number 5. The Pentagon learned that the Wagner Group mercenaries were reportedly looking into alternative employment after all the casualties they suffered by aiding Russia. The group was apparently planning to discreetly take contracts from the government of Haiti to help the national police fight against gangs. Number 4. According to communications that the US had intercepted, Nicaragua had been strengthening ties with China since its primary security ally, Russia, became entangled in its invasion of Ukraine. The Pentagon seemed to think that Nicaragua would still remain allied with Russia, but it might consider offering the Chinese Navy access to its ports in exchange for economic investment. Number 3. It's not just Russian and Ukrainian fighters on the ground either. As many as 50 British Special Forces were present in Ukraine, along with US and French Special Forces as well. One leaked Pentagon document listed the number of outside special forces that were operating within the country, with as many as 97 from NATO countries active in Ukraine. While the UK declined to comment in an official capacity, and France has denied all claims of their soldiers being in Ukraine, apparently a team of US Special Forces operatives were confirmed to have been operating out of the American Embassy in Kyiv. However, they are not active on the front lines alongside Ukrainian troops. Number 2. The recent Thug Shaker Central leaks aren't even the only embarrassing dissemination of Pentagon secrets to the public. A senior research associate at MIT's Center for International Studies, Daniel Ellsberg, gave the New York Times around 4,000 pages of appended top-secret documents that detailed the US's interference in various wars in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The Pentagon papers revealed that the US actions during the Vietnam War involved far more attacks than had been previously reported on by the mainstream media, and that various presidential administrations had been systematically lying to both public and Congress. Number 1. Did you know there's a secret apartment above the Pentagon? During the building's construction, one of the key figures involved, Major Robert Furman, was required to be on site at all hours of the day. So Furman had some of the construction contractors build him a secret apartment situated between the walls of what would later become the Army's Ordnance Division. Employees began to refer to Furman as a ghost, since he'd disappear without a trace, only to re-emerge the next day, all without leaving the Pentagon. And it seemed that this ghost was just heading to a place he could rest. Major Furman later served as an intelligence officer on the Manhattan Project, the government program that researched the development of nuclear weapons. He continued to use his secret Pentagon apartment whenever traveling back to Washington, until ordnance officers discovered it and forced him out. Those were 50 of the craziest declassified Pentagon secrets that we could find. And if those are just the things we know about, it makes you wonder what else could be out there. Now check out Intelligence Official Reveals US is Recovering Crashed Alien UFOs, or watch this video instead.